You remember the moment like a punch in slow motion. A rookie running back goes down, the cart comes out, the stadium falls oddly quiet, and everyone who loves the sport realizes they just watched something ugly and serious. That was Cam Skattebo at Lincoln Financial Field. Carted off after an ankle dislocation that turned out to be far worse than a single terrifying frame. What we thought was bad, it was worse. Rapoport reported that Skattebo didn't just dislocate his ankle, he also fractured his fibula and ruptured the deltoid ligament. X, formerly Twitter, the team moved fast. Surgery happened that night in Philadelphia. Coaches later said all went well, and the Giants placed him on injured reserve as they began the process of roster accounting and rehab planning. Skattebo was discharged from the hospital, and the club immediately started to sketch out the on-field and off-field fallback plan. NFL.com. Let's pause on the human stuff for a second. Skattebo is a fourth-round pick who came in and became real, not a novelty, not a hype train, but a doer. Before the injury, he'd carried 110 times for roughly 410 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he was adding receiving juice too. Those aren't rookie flukes. They were the building blocks of a new identity for a team that had been starved for playmakers. Losing that kid is a tangible, emotional hit for teammates, coaches, and a fan base that fell for his motor and his backflip celebrations. ESPN.com, medical, reality now. Fractures and deltoid ligament ruptures are not the same thing as a rolled ankle you shrug off by Tuesday. This is structural damage that needs precise surgical repair and careful rehab to avoid long-term complications like instability or early arthritis. The optimistic timeline being floated, roughly 4 to 6 months to meaningful recovery with a realistic target of returning for off-season work and OTAs, is encouraging, but it's the kind of timeline that comes with caveats. It assumes no setbacks, clean healing, and the absence of infection or other complications that sometimes come with open dislocations. Big Blue View. Which brings us to the team side mechanics. The Giants use the IR designation to open a roster spot and begin the next chapter planning. Tyrone, Tracy Jr. and veteran Devin Singletary are now the primary ball carriers, and the team even claimed defensive back Jarek Bernard Converse to take Skattebo's roster spot, a small but telling move that shows how the roster priorities shifted overnight. Expect Tracy to get the early down workload and Singletary to mix in third down and change of pace snaps while the coaches audition other pieces in practice and via workouts. CBS Sports. Okay, reality check. How does a team replace a dynamic rookie midseason? You don't. Not fully. What you do is triage. You reallocate scheme, shorten the playbook where necessary, and lean into what the replacements do well. If Tracy is better between the tackles, you'll see more inside zone and downhill looks. If Singletary is more nimble in the pass game, you'll get different personnel packages on third down. The offensive coordinator suddenly becomes a tightrope walker. Find efficiency without the same explosive mismatches that Skattebo generated. CT Insider. Here's the intangible. Culture. Skattebo wasn't just yards and touchdowns. He was a vibe. That backflip after a score, the way he celebrated in the locker room, the look teammates get when he put a shoulder down, those are catalysts for energy. When a young player like that goes down, the challenge isn't only X's and O's, it's getting the team to hold that same spark. Good coaches lean into that. They tell the room, this was his energy, we carry it. That line becomes real if other players step up and make it real on Sundays. So let's talk timeline without sugarcoating. 4 to 6 months would put Skattebo back in the ballpark for spring practices and OTAs if everything heals cleanly. That's the optimistic path. Even on the optimistic path, the work is brutal. There's a lot of ankle stiffness work, a careful progression from walking to cutting to contact, and then the endless rebuilding of confidence. The Giants and their medical staff will run him through strength, proprioception, and load-bearing checks before even thinking about the first padded practice. So, yes, we can hold a hopeful calendar, but the real measure will be how the foot and ankle feel under live pressure. Big Blue View. From a franchise perspective, this changes today's priorities. The immediate goal is to stabilize the offense and keep the team competitive in games where possessions matter. Long term, this tests the front office's patience and the faith they have in their young core. Do they try to patch the roster via midseason trade or free agent churn? Or do they ride it out and let the internal guys prove themselves? There's no one-size answer. It's a blend of roster philosophy, cap math, and the realistic belief in whether the team can still compete with the current pieces. For fantasy managers and the viewing public, the quick takeaway is simple. Tyrone Tracy Jr. immediately becomes a priority pickup, Singletary's role widens, and anytime you had penciled in Skattebo's touches for the rest of the season, those are now up for grabs. For the Giants' play calling, expect an early conservative flavor and slow re-expansion as the new backfield finds its groove. SB Nation, but let's end on the thing that matters, the human being. Skattebo left the stadium in an air cast, waved to the crowd despite the pain, went into surgery for what was described as an emergency procedure, and then got discharged to begin rehab. Those are small miracles in a grim story, and they're what teammates hang on to. He texted, social posts came in, the locker room sent love. These are the pulses that keep a recovery human and not just a medical timetable. Fans should hope for the cleanest recovery and remember that when he's back, it'll be because he did the hardest work off camera. NFL.com final image. Rewind to a highlight of Skattebo hitting a crease, the stadium noise, the backflip celebration, then crossfade to a montage of him rehabbing. Ice, resistance bands, early stage running drills, and then the first time he gets back in pads. That's not fantasy. That's the arc the Giants and their fans will cheer for now. A scary setback, careful surgery, relentless rehab, and with luck and smart medicine, a full return to the field in time to pick the story back up next spring. For now, the team scrambles on Sunday. Later, if all goes right, a kid who put the city on his back will lace them up again. X, formerly Twitter. Cam Skattebo's season is over, and the injury is worse than the scary moment you saw on TV. The Giants' rookie running back suffered a dislocated right ankle that also included a fractured fibula and a ruptured deltoid ligament. He had surgery Sunday night and has been placed on injured reserve. The early medical read is sobering but straightforward. This is a major multi-structure ankle injury that requires months of rehab. Reuters. What that means, concretely. The club confirmed the surgery went well, and Skattebo has been discharged from the hospital to begin rehab, but he's almost certainly done for 2025 and won't return until the offseason program at the earliest. The Giants officially put him on IR, and the team is treating his recovery as a long-term rehab project rather than a short-term roster hiccup. Giants quick snapshot of what the Giants just lost. Through 8 games, Skattebo had 410 rushing yards and 5 rushing TDs, plus 207 receiving yards and 2 receiving TDs. A homegrown spark in an offense that badly needed one. Those numbers don't just represent box score production. They represent identity, energy, and a rookie who had become a chain mover and a red zone threat. Losing that combination hurts both the present game plan and the long-term developmental timeline for the offense. ESPN.com medical timeline and prognosis. The realistic window most outlets are quoting is roughly 4 to 6 months of structured recovery before full football activity, and some reports suggest closer to 6 months, depending on how the ligament repair heals. That timeline puts a hopeful return near off-season workouts and certainly ahead of 2026 training camp, but not anything close to game-ready this season. Expect a cautious rehab protocol. Wound care and anti-infection measures immediately post-op, then progressive range of motion, strength work, gradual weight bearing, and months of sports-specific conditioning. The Giants will measure milestones, not dates. BleacherReport.com, what the team does right matters. Brian Daboll and Joe Scone have already signaled the depth chart will change. Tyrone Tracy Jr. will step into the lead role in the backfield, with veteran Devin Singletary mixing in as the secondary ball carrier and pass game option. The club also has practice squad options and could add in free agency if they want more experience. But the immediate plan is workload redistribution. More carries for Tracy, more third down receiving snaps for Singletary, and committee-based game plans that protect the offense from becoming one-dimensional. ESPN.com tactical impact. The Giants were building a run-centric identity around Skattebo's burst and contact balance. Losing him forces an offense that had been leaning on designed runs, outside zone bursts, and play action to pivot back towards simplified packages and more reliance on short passing and tempo. That's not inherently bad. Good coaches adapt, but it lowers the ceiling of what the offense can do in open field situations where Skattebo created explosive plays. Defenses will now key different keys, and the Giants have to be ready to protect their quarterback in different ways and manufacture chunk plays through other means. Think more RPOs, quick outs, and splash plays schemed to Singletary Tracy, and pure play action when the run game starts to click. Ross